best high-end bourbon brands to drink. Calling all bourbon lovers out there. Get to know what's the best high-end bourbon without spending a dime. In this video, you'll see top 10 high-end bourbons we recommend. Starting with number 10, Garrison Brothers Cowboy Bourbon. Average price, roughly $249.99 at Total Wine. This bourbon is distilled at the Garrison Brothers Distillery and has alcohol content 65.65%. And here's why we liked it. Garrison Brothers Cowboy is a limited release, unfiltered, uncut bourbon straight from the barrel. It is sweet, but it does not overpower other spirit notes. The bourbon has an inviting aroma of full grain leather, sweet pipe tobacco, and warm raspberry. 9. Eagle Rare 17-Year Bourbon. Average price, roughly $1,649.99 at Drizzly. This bourbon is distilled at the Buffalo Trace Distillery and has alcohol content 50.5%. And here's why we liked it. Eagle Rare 17-Year Bourbon by Buffalo Trace Distillery is a Kentucky bourbon whiskey crafted and aged for 17 years. It has rareness and a complex aroma with a lingering and smooth taste. More so, Eagle Rare has distinctive tasting notes of candied almonds, rich cocoa, oak flavors, and a dry finish. 8. Angel's Envy Cask Strength Bourbon Whiskey. Average price, rocky $274.99 at Drizzly. This bourbon is distilled at the Angel's Envy Distillery and has alcohol content 60.2%, and here's why we liked it. Who would miss the Spirit Journal's best spirit in the world? Angel's Envy Cask Strength Bourbon Whiskey is carefully crafted until it reaches its ideal maturity level. Every sip of Angel's Envy Cask Strength is worth savoring, thanks to its rich aroma and complex flavor profile. You'll taste the herbal notes, caramel and sweet raisins, and its finish evokes heavily toasted oak, fresh figs, and dark chocolate. 7. Stagg Junior Bourbon. Average price, rocky $119.99 at Drizzly. This bourbon is distilled at the Buffalo Trace Distillery and has alcohol content 67.2%, and here's why we liked it. Stagg Junior Bourbon is unfiltered and uncut bourbon whiskey that has matured for nearly a decade. It boasts a bold character, making every sip powerful and enjoyable. This bourbon whiskey perfectly balances bold rye spice, rich, sweet chocolate, and brown sugar. It has a boundless finish that lingers with hints of cloves, smokiness, and cherries. Average price, rocky $349.99 at Drizzly. This bourbon is distilled at the Buffalo Trace Distillery and has alcohol content around 63.75%. And here's why we liked it. A.H. Taylor Juror Barrel Proof Bourbon features a pleasing aroma of cooked berries and a slightly floral and rich caramel scent. On the palate, it is full of spice and fills your mouth with a distinct flavor of vanilla, dried oak, and pepper. It has a long, satisfying finish with lingering fruit notes and a powerful rye character. 5. Old Forester Birthday Bourbon. Average price, roughly $574.99 at Drizzly. This bourbon is distilled at the Brown-Forman Distillery and has alcohol content 52%, and here's why we liked it. Every September 2nd, Old Forester releases a 12-year-old vintage expression in a limited edition to honor the founder George Garvin Brown's birthday. This high-end bourbon is a must-try if you want to experience a rare handcrafted bourbon. It has a beautiful symphony of dessert components and berry on the nose with balanced notes of dried herbs and vanilla. It also has rich and inviting caramel, burnt sugar, and freshly baked cookie notes with a lengthy and dry finish. 4. George T. Stagg Bourbon. Average price, roughly $599.99 at Drizzly. This bourbon is distilled at the Buffalo Trace Distillery and has alcohol content 58.45%. And here's why we liked it. George T. Stagg Bourbon is an uncut and unfiltered Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. It has been aged for almost a decade, and its flavor profile is bold and rich in toffee sweetness and dark chocolate. It also has underlying notes of dark berries, spearmint, coffee, and tobacco, and a lingering finish. 3. William LaRue Weller Bourbon. Average price, roughly $1,059.99 at Drizzly. This bourbon is distilled at the Buffalo Trace Distillery and has alcohol content around 64%, and here's why we liked it. William LaRue Weller Bourbon is a widely acclaimed bourbon whiskey and another pride of the Buffalo Trace Distillery. It has fragrant scents of new leather, caramel corn, light toffee, and tobacco. WL Weller tastes like salted almonds, dates, figs, and nougat on the palate. It has a flavorful, sweet, and smooth finish. But what's a good bourbon whiskey? 2. Michter's 20-year Kentucky Straight Bourbon. Average price, roughly $2,824.99 at Drizzly. This bourbon is distilled at the Michter's Distillery and has alcohol content 57.1%. And here's why we liked it. Michter's 20-year-old Kentucky Straight Bourbon is a limited edition spirit that undergoes very strict quality control. It does not meet the standard, and nothing is bottled. The Michter's 20-year-old has tasting notes of rich, silky, and tannic. It has an oak-forward aroma and flavor profile with heavy richness and a mix of spice and sweet. 1. Pappy Van Winkle's 15-year Family Reserve. Average price, roughly $1,922.39 at Drizzly. This bourbon is distilled at the Buffalo Trace Distillery and has alcohol content 53.5%. And here's why we liked it. We know you are not surprised, but Pappy Van Winkle's 15-year Family Reserve is the most voted and highly recommended bourbon. It is rich, smooth, flavorful, and sweet bourbon that no one should not miss. Untouched by human hands and unhurried by time, the bourbon remained undisturbed inside deep charred oak barrels for 15 years. Bourbon is an American native spirit, and because of its continuous growth, it is no surprise that there is a wide selection on the market today. Good thing we managed to compile the most voted high-end bourbons. High-end bourbons are not necessarily expensive or hard to find. It all boils down to which bourbon is most enjoyable to drink. Cheers! If you liked the video, share it with your friends and subscribe to our channel.